Alex almost left. He had his coat half on, the sleeve catching on the chair like it was trying to keep him there. Then the waitress appeared, not the college kid who'd taken his order, but an older woman with gray streaks pulled into a knot so tight it looked painful. She didn't speak. She just slid the folded square across the red checkered cloth, tapped it once with a calloused finger and walked away. Her apron strings trailed behind her like a lifeline he hadn't asked for. He opened it. "Table 12 is yours tonight. Don't waste it on someone who doesn't show. Lena, the one who's been watching you fix your hair in the mirror for 20 minutes. Alex laughed once, a cracked sound that turned heads. He hadn't realized he'd been doing that, smoothing the cowlick that never stayed down, checking his teeth for the basil leaf that wasn't there. He looked up. Lena was already at the bar, polishing a glass that didn't need it, pretending not to watch. The man who waited too long. Alex was 34, a graphic designer who could sell heartbreak in a logo, but couldn't keep a girlfriend past a third date. He blamed the job clients who ghosted, deadlines that bled into weekends. His sister, Mara, blamed his emotional availability settings stuck on airplane mode. She was the one who'd set up the blind date with her coworker, a woman named Becca, who loved dogs and indie rock, and definitely wasn't a serial killer. Alex had spent the afternoon picking a shirt that said "I have my life together" without screaming, "I'm trying too hard." He'd arrived early, ordered a Negroni he didn't want, and rehearsed conversation starters about typography and rescue mutts. Now the Negroni was watered down, and the mutt starters were dead on arrival. He read the note again. Table 12. He was sitting at table 12. Lena, she was 52. Divorced 15 years. Mother to a son who texted only when he needed bail money. Marino's had been her battlefield since the alimony ran out. She knew every story. The restaurant walls had absorbed the proposals, the breakups, the first dates that ended with someone crying in the bathroom. She'd seen Alex come in alone twice before. Both times stood up. Both times he'd smiled at the server like it was his fault. Tonight was the third strike, and Lena had decided the universe was being cruel. She didn't usually meddle, but she'd watched him fold and unfold that paper napkin into smaller and smaller squares, the way her son used to do with detention slips. Something in the set of his shoulders reminded her of the night her own husband walked out, how she'd sat at their kitchen table long after the pizza got cold, waiting for footsteps that never came back. The first move, Alex stood. The legs of his chair scraped loud enough to earn a glare from a couple sharing tiramisu. He carried the note like a hall pass and walked to the bar. "Hi, Lena?" She didn't turn. "Unless the health inspector's here, it's just Lena." He placed the note on the counter. "You wrote this?" "I did." "Why?" She finally looked at him. Her eyes were the color of burnt coffee, tired but sharp. "Because nobody should eat alone on a Saturday unless they want to." "You don't want to." He opened his mouth, closed it. "How do you know?" "You ordered the lasagna for two. Then you moved the second fork to the edge like it was contaminated. People who want to be alone don't care where the forks go." Alex felt his face heat. "I can pay for both meals." "You already did." She nodded at the lasagna steaming under the heat lamp, untouched. "Cook's not gonna toss it. Might as well feed someone who'll appreciate it." "Who?" She tilted her head toward the kitchen door. "Me. My break's in 5. Unless you'd rather keep folding napkins into origami swans." The shared table. 5 minutes later, Lena untied her apron, rolled her shoulders like she was shedding armor, and carried 2 plates to table 12. The lasagna was cut down the middle, hers with extra parmesan, his with a side of humility. They ate in silence at first, the clink of forks loud in the lull between dinner rush and last call. Then Lena asked, "What's the worst date you've ever had?" Alex snorted. "Tonight's climbing the charts. Give me the podium finishers." He told her about the girl who brought her ex for moral support, the one who asked if he believed in chakras, and then tried to realign his with a crystal the size of a hockey puck. Lena countered with the customer who proposed to his girlfriend with onion rings, because the real ring was in the shop. The girlfriend had said yes, then thrown the onion rings at him when she found the receipt in his pocket. By the time the garlic knots were gone, Alex was laughing so hard his eyes watered. Lena watched him wipe them with the same napkin he'd murdered earlier. "You don't laugh enough," she said. "How would you know?" "I've got eyes. And 20 years of watching people pretend they're fine." The crack. The restaurant emptied. The college kid bussed tables, humming something with too much bass. Lena poured them both a finger of cooking wine, technically not allowed, definitely not sanitary, absolutely necessary. Alex stared into the ruby liquid. "I keep thinking if I just optimize myself better." New photos. Better jokes. Maybe grow a beard. Stop. Lena's voice was soft but firm. You're not a software update. He swallowed. Feels like I am. Version 34.1 now with 50% less abandonment issues. She leaned forward. You know what I see? A guy who showed up. That's rarer than you think. He looked away. My dad didn't. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Lena waited. He left when I was 7. Said he'd be back after he figured some things out. Never did. I spent years thinking if I'd been funnier, quieter, better at soccer, you'd have fixed him. Lena finished. Alex nodded, throat tight. She reached across the table, not for his hand too intimate, but for the salt shaker. Turning it between her fingers, my son thinks if he stays out of trouble for 1 whole year, I'll stop being disappointed. We're both wrong. People leave because of who they are, not who we aren't. The candle guttered. Wax pooled like a tiny red heart. The note. Part 2. Lena pulled a pen from her pocket, flipped the original note over, and wrote on the back. She slid it to him. Your dad was an idiot. But you're here. That's the part you control. P.S. The beard would itch. Alex read it twice. His eyes burned. He tried to laugh it off, but the sound caught. A single tear slipped, surprising them both. He swiped at it, embarrassed. Sorry, I don't apologize for feeling, kid. That's the whole point. The challenge. The cook poked his head out. Lena, we're closing in 20. She nodded, then turned to Alex. You got plans tomorrow? Recovering from public humiliation? Good. Meet me here at 10 a.m. Wear something you don't mind getting dirty. What for? You'll see. Sunday morning merinos smelled like bleach and possibility. Lena handed him a bucket and a sponge the size of a dinner plate. We're scrubbing the walk-in, she said. Owner's too cheap to hire a service. And I'm tired of finding mystery lasagna from 2019. Alex stared. This is your idea of a second date. This is your idea of proving you show up when it's not pretty. He rolled up his sleeves. They worked for 3 hours. She told him about the shelter, where she volunteered weekends, how the dogs didn't care if you were late on rent, only that you brought treats. He told her about the logo he designed for a domestic violence hotline, how the client cried when she saw the final dove made of shattered glass pieced back together between shelves of tomato sauce. They found a rhythm, her stories, his silences, the squeak of sponge on metal. At noon, the walk-in sparkled. Lena handed him a coffee in a to-go cup. You passed. Passed what? The not flaking test. He took a sip. It was perfect oat milk, 2 sugars, exactly how he'd ordered last night without thinking she'd noticed. Now what? He asked. Now you decide if you want to keep waiting for people who don't show, or start showing up for the ones who do. The resolution that wasn't a bow, they didn't fall in love. This isn't that kind of story. But every Sunday for the next 2 months, Alex met Lena at Marino's before opening. They scrubbed, restocked. Sometimes just sat on milk crates out back while she smoked a cigarette she swore was her last. He learned her son had enrolled in community college. She learned Alex had finally deleted the dating apps and started fostering a 3-legged beagle named Pancake. One Sunday, the owner offered Alex a part-time gig designing new menus. He took it. The first design featured a tiny dove in the corner, shattered glass, whole again. Lena cried when she saw it. She blamed the onions. The last note on the night Marino's celebrated its 30th anniversary. The place was packed. Alex wore a blazer over his apron. Greeting tables like he'd been there forever. Lena found him in the kitchen, tying a new boatie that refused to cooperate. She handed him a folded square, same rushed handwriting, same bleeding ink. Table 12 is booked solid tonight. Good thing you don't need it anymore. Proud of you, kid. He didn't cry this time. He smiled so wide the boat eye finally surrendered. Epilogue. The message years later, when Alex's own restaurant opened downtown small. 12 tables. Red checkered cloths. Table 12 was always reserved on Saturdays. Not for VIPs. For anyone eating alone who looked like they might need a note. The note was simple, printed on the menu's back page. You showed up. That's the start. Order the lasagna for 2. We'll split it. And under the table, carved into the wood where only the waitstaff could see, Lena had left one last line the night she retired. For the ones still waiting to be found.